It wasn't guilt I felt when I saw him shake my hand that night. It was something closer to fear, and I didn't know why. My daughter had been with Thomas for 2 years before he proposed. 2 years of Sunday dinners, of him helping me carry groceries in from the car, of him laughing at my jokes about the old Chevy I refused to sell. He was charming in the way that some men are charming, effortlessly, automatically, like breathing. My wife, God rest her, would have said he was too smooth. She had a nose for that kind of thing. I never did. The engagement party was held at my brother-in-law's place in Scottsdale. My daughter, Yvonne, wore her mother's earrings. That was the first time I cried since the funeral. Thomas stood beside her with his arm around her waist, and everyone said they were the perfect couple. And I believed them, because I wanted to. Because wanting it badly enough felt, at 63, like a reasonable substitute for knowing. Thomas worked in commercial real estate. He'd grown up in Phoenix, had a degree from Arizona State, drove a Lexus he'd leased, but spoke about as if he owned it outright. He was 34. Yvonne was 31. His parents were quiet people. His father a retired contractor. His mother a dental hygienist. And they seemed as fond of my daughter as I would have hoped. I had no reason to distrust him. But something that night sat wrong in my chest. Not a thought. Just a feeling. The kind that you file away and tell yourself is nothing. I own a small construction company. Well, I owned it. I built it from nothing, starting in my mid-30s, mostly residential work in the East Valley, a few commercial projects later on. By the time I sold the operations side to a partner, I had the building, a rental property in Mesa, a parcel of raw land near Queen Creek I'd been sitting on for 12 years, and a retirement account that my accountant said was more than most people your age, which either means you worked hard or got lucky or both. He wasn't wrong. I am not a wealthy man by any large definition. But I am comfortable. And I am single. And I have one daughter. Thomas knew all of this. I didn't think about that until much later. The wedding was planned for a Saturday in April at a venue outside Sedona. Red rocks, high desert, late afternoon light that turns everything gold. Yvonne had wanted that setting since she was a girl. Her mother and I had taken her there once when she was maybe 9, and she'd stood on a rock ledge and spread her arms out and said the sky looked like it was on fire. She never forgot it. I didn't either. In the months leading up to the wedding, Thomas and I had dinner alone 3 times. He suggested it. Said he wanted to get to know me better man to man. I thought that was admirable. We went to a steakhouse in Tempe the first time, a sports bar the second time, a place he'd chosen in downtown Scottsdale the third time. Nicer, quieter. It was at that third dinner that the questions started. Not big questions, small ones, incremental. The kind that don't announce themselves. Do you ever think about retiring fully? I mean, you've sold most of it already. The Queen Creek land, does it appreciate much out there, or is it just sitting? Yvonne mentioned you have a rental property. Is that more hassle than it's worth at this point? I answered him honestly because I had no reason not to. The land was appreciating. The rental property netted me about $1,400 a month after expenses. I wasn't planning to sell either. He nodded. He smiled. He changed the subject. I remember thinking, he asks about money the way some people ask about the weather. Casually. Consistently. Like it's just something in the air. But I told myself I was being uncharitable. He was about to marry my daughter. Of course he was thinking about the future. Of course he wanted to understand the family finances. That was reasonable, wasn't it? At the time, I told myself yes. The week before the wedding, my son flew in from Portland. I should say Yvonne and her brother Dale have always been close, the way siblings are when they have been through something hard together. Losing their mother when Yvonne was 24 and Dale was 21 did that. It welded them. Dale is quieter than his sister, more careful, the kind of person who reads a contract before he signs it, who double-checks the math, who learned early that the world doesn't always tell you what it's doing to you. He didn't say anything against Thomas, not directly. But the night he arrived, we sat on my back porch with 2 beers and the desert going dark around us, and he said, "Dad, Did Thomas ever ask you about getting power of attorney for anything? I looked at him. No. Why? He turned his beer bottle in his hands. No reason. Just Yvonne mentioned he brought it up, said it might be useful in case you ever had a health issue, someone who could act quickly. She said it like it was his idea. I didn't say anything for a moment. She didn't seem bothered by it, Dale added. But I was. I filed it away again. This time it went deeper. The morning of the wedding, I was getting dressed in the suite the venue had set aside for the family, and Dale knocked and came in and sat on the edge of the bed while I worked on my tie. I am not good with ties. My wife used to do it for me. I've been practicing for 2 years, and I'm still not good. I made a call this morning, Dale said. I looked at him in the mirror. To who? To a friend of mine from law school. She's an estate attorney. I described the situation, what Yvonne had said about the power of attorney, Thomas's questions about your property. Just described it. Didn't use any names. I set down the tie, and she said the pattern concerns her. She said there's a specific kind of financial predation that targets widowed or divorced homeowners with adult children. It's not always obvious. It can start with a marriage, a power of attorney, and a quiet real estate transfer. I stood there. She said if someone wanted to move on your assets, the easiest way would be to get you to sign something. A document you didn't fully read, a transfer, a new LLC you're folded into, in a social setting, when you're emotional, when you're not thinking like a businessman. I sat down on the bed next to him. Like a wedding reception, I said. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The ceremony was beautiful. I mean that. Whatever else happened, whatever I know now, the ceremony was beautiful. Yvonne walked down the aisle on my arm and she squeezed my hand 3 times, which is what she'd done since she was little. 3 squeezes meant I'm okay. I'm here. I've got you. I squeezed back twice. Same as always. Me too. Thomas cried at the altar. I washed his face carefully. I've been watching men's faces for 30 years, at contract signings, at job sites, at moments where money and trust intersect, and I have learned that you can't always tell. Some men cry because they're overwhelmed with love. Some men cry because they won something. The tears looked the same. After the ceremony, during cocktail hour, his best man, a man I'd met twice, who worked at the same commercial real estate firm, pulled me aside and said, Thomas thinks the world of you. He really respects everything you've built. I said, thank you. He said, he mentioned you might be looking at some estate planning. If you're ever interested, there are some structures that could really protect everything for the next generation. Thomas knows some people. I smiled. I said I had a good attorney already. He clapped me on the shoulder and moved on. I stood there for a moment and thought, this is organized. The father-daughter dance was the last song before dinner. We chose a song Yvonne and her mother used to sing in the car. She'd asked me a month before if I remembered it, and I'd had to go find it on my phone and listen to it alone in my truck, in a parking lot, because I knew I would cry and I didn't want her to see. It's an old song. Not famous, just ours. We were about a minute in when she pulled slightly closer and slipped something into my jacket's breast pocket. I felt her fingers press it flat. She didn't look at me when she did it. She kept her head on my shoulder, kept swaying, kept smiling at the people watching. I didn't reach for it. I just kept dancing. At the end of the song, she kissed my cheek and said quietly, against my ear, read it when you're alone, Dad. Don't react. Just read it. I went to the men's room, locked the stall, took out the piece of paper. It was torn from a small notepad, the kind hotels leave on the desk. Her handwriting, small and slanted the way it's always been. Dad, Thomas is going to ask you to sign something tonight. He's going to call it a family investment agreement. His best man helped him draft it. I found it on his laptop 2 weeks ago. I photographed it. It would give him co-ownership interest in the Mesa property and first right of refusal on the Queen Creek land. He doesn't know I know. Dale has the photos. Please don't sign anything. I love you. I'm sorry. I folded the paper, sat with it for a moment. Then I flushed the toilet, washed my hands, straightened my jacket, and walked back out to the reception. I found Dale at the bar. I stood next to him and ordered a club soda and said, without looking at him, "You have the photographs." He said, I've had them for 12 days. I was waiting to see if you'd come to me. Why didn't you come to me? Because Yvonne asked me not to. She wanted to tell you herself. She was scared of what you do. What did she think I'd do? He was quiet for a second. She thought you might confront him before the ceremony. She thought you might cancel everything. She didn't want to blow up her wedding until she knew for certain. I looked across the room at Thomas. He was laughing with his best man. The same easy, automatic laugh. The same easy, automatic charm. Call your friend from law school, I said. Tonight. Tell her we need to talk first thing Monday. Dale nodded. He sipped his drink. Already left her a message. Thomas approached me about 90 minutes later, during dinner, while the speeches were still going. He was relaxed, glass of whiskey in hand, the way people are relaxed when they believe everything is proceeding according to plan. Can I steal you for a few minutes? He said. There's something I wanted to talk to you about. Just something I've been putting together, a way to structure things that could really benefit everyone. I said, sure. We stepped into a side corridor near the catering entrance. He had a manila envelope. He removed 2 pages, stapled, and handed them to me. It's informal, he said. Just something my colleague drew up. A family investment framework. Basically, it creates a shared structure for the Mesa property and the Queen Creek parcel. Protects them from probate. Keeps them in the family. Gives me a formal role so I can help manage things as your son-in-law. I read the first page slowly. He was watching me the way people watch when they want to look relaxed and are not. I said, who's the attorney who drew this up? He said it was a colleague. I said, not a licensed real estate attorney. He paused, just briefly. He has a background in contracts. I folded the pages, handed them back, said I need to have my own attorney look at anything before I sign. That's always been my rule, nothing personal. His smile stayed on his face, but it did something else behind the eyes. Recalculated. Rerouted. Of course, he said. Absolutely no rush. He put the envelope under his arm. We walked back to the reception separately. That was the last real conversation I had with him that night. Monday morning, Dale and I met with his attorney friend at her office near Camelback Road. She'd already reviewed the photographs of the document. She set her notepad down and looked at me over her reading glasses and said, "This is not a family investment framework. This is a vehicle designed to transfer partial ownership of your Mesa property to your son-in-law upon signing, and to give him a contractual claim on the Queen Creek land that would supersede your ability to sell or transfer it independently." I said, "In plain terms." She said, "In plain terms, if you'd signed this, he would have owned a piece of what you built before you were even home from the honeymoon." I sat with that. She continued, "The language about probate protection and family continuity is boilerplate camouflage. This was drafted to be signed at a wedding, at an emotionally elevated moment, by a man in his 60s who's just walked his daughter down the aisle. That's not an accident." Dale asked what we could do. She said we had options. We could do nothing and simply never sign. We could formally document the attempt and consult with law enforcement, though without more evidence of intent. The civil route was more promising. Or, and she said this carefully, we could examine whether the individual who drafted the document was holding himself out as an attorney without a license, which in Arizona is a serious matter. She made a call that afternoon. The colleague who drafted the document was, in fact, not a licensed attorney in Arizona. He had a business background, had worked for a document preparation service, and had signed the draft with a title he was not legally entitled to use. That changed things. I am not a vindictive man. I want to say that clearly because what happened next might suggest otherwise. I don't take pleasure in watching people fail. But I have spent my adult life building something honest, bidding jobs fairly, paying my crews on time, shaking hands and meaning it. When someone tries to dismantle that with a manila envelope at my daughter's wedding, something in me that is normally quiet becomes very loud. We filed a complaint with the Arizona State Bar regarding the unauthorized practice of law. Dale documented everything. The photographs, the timeline, the conversations I recounted. The attorney friend drafted a formal cease and desist, addressed to Thomas personally, which was delivered to him 11 days after the wedding. He called me. I let it go to voicemail. His voicemail was 3 minutes and 40 seconds of explaining that it had all been misunderstood, that he'd only wanted to help, that he cared deeply about the family and about me. There was a note in his voice I had not heard before. Not confidence, not charm, but something thinner, defensive, the voice of a man whose plan had come apart and who had not prepared a second one. Yvonne had moved out of their apartment by the time the letter arrived. She was staying with a friend. She told me she'd known for almost a month before the wedding, had been trying to figure out how to act normal while sitting with what she knew. She said the hardest part was the dancing, looking happy while her heart was breaking. I told her she was the bravest person I knew. She said she learned it from watching me run my business alone after her mother died, watching me show up every morning anyway. I didn't know she'd been watching that closely. I should have. The complaint regarding the unauthorized practice of law resulted in a formal investigation. Thomas's best man, the colleague who drafted the document, was barred from offering any legal or contract services in the state and was referred for potential criminal charges. Thomas himself was investigated for his role in soliciting the document with intent to deceive a family member. His brokerage reviewed his conduct under their ethics guidelines. He resigned before a formal determination was made. The last I heard, he had moved back to Phoenix from the East Valley. I heard this through no particular effort of my own, just the way small cities work. People know people. Things come back around. The Queen Creek land is still mine. The Mesa property still generates $1,400 a month, sometimes more in summer. I had my will updated and my estate documents revised by a board-certified estate planning attorney. Everything is explicit, documented, and clear. Yvonne filed for annulment on the grounds of fraud. It was granted. It is May now. The desert is already heating up the way it does. That dry building heat that by June will be a wall you walk through. I drove out to the Queen Creek land last weekend. It's still raw, still quiet, scrub and rock and the long view east. I've been sitting on it for 12 years, and people have asked me 100 times why I don't sell, and I've never had a clean answer. I think the clean answer is that my wife stood on that land with me once, back when we were still figuring out what to do with it. She said the sky out here makes everything feel possible. I don't disagree. And I am not ready to let go of places where things felt possible. Yvonne called me from that land. I hadn't told her I was going out there, but she called right when I was standing at the edge of the lot looking east, and she said, "I just wanted to hear your voice." I said I was outside. She said it sounded quiet. I said it was. We talked for 40 minutes, about nothing important, about everything. My son flew back to Portland. He called when he landed. He said, "You doing okay, Dad?" I told him I was more than okay. He said good, because I deserved to be. I don't know about deserving. You build things. You protect them. You try not to let the right people down. Some days that's enough. Most days, if you're paying attention, it is. The morning I drove out to Queen Creek, the sun came up slow and wide over the ridge, the way it does out there. No buildings to interrupt it. Just light spreading across the rock like something being revealed. I sat on the hood of my truck and drank my coffee, and thought about my wife and my kids, and what I had managed not to lose. And I thought, some things aren't built to be sold. Some things are just built to last. I keep thinking about what my daughter carried alone for almost a month. She knew. She'd seen the document on his laptop, photographed it, and then sat across from him at dinner, slept beside him at night, planned a wedding with him, all while holding that knowledge inside like something heavy she couldn't set down. She was 31 years old, and she handled it with more steadiness than I think I could have managed at twice her age. That's not nothing. That's character. And character, I've come to believe, isn't something you're born with in full. It's built, slowly, sometimes painfully, out of every moment you chose to do the right thing when the easier thing was right there in front of you. What happened to Thomas was not bad luck. I want to be clear about that. He made a series of deliberate choices to deceive, to exploit a moment of emotional vulnerability, to use a wedding as cover for a financial scheme. And what unraveled him wasn't fate or chance. It was the consequence of those choices meeting the intelligence and integrity of the people around him who refused to look away. Yvonne noticed something wrong and didn't dismiss it. Dale asked a hard question on a back porch and waited. His attorney friend her document and called what it was. Actions don't disappear into the air. They land somewhere. They produce outcomes. Thomas built his plan carefully. He just didn't account for the fact that the people he was trying to deceive were paying attention. I think about my son a lot in all this. Dale is not a dramatic person. He doesn't make speeches or grand gestures. He made a phone call. He kept photographs safe for 12 days. He said the right thing at the right moment without making it about himself. That kind of quiet, precise thinking, the kind that actually solves problems instead of just reacting to them. That's a form of love I don't think we talk about enough. Protecting someone with your mind, not just your heart. That takes discipline. It takes the willingness to be uncomfortable for someone else's sake, to sit with difficult information and decide carefully what to do with it. And I think about myself too, about all the dinners where I answered Thomas's questions honestly because I had no reason not to, about the way I trusted the surface of things because the surface looked right. I don't blame myself for that. Trust is not a character flaw, but it reminded me that being decent doesn't protect you from people who aren't. You have to stay sharp. You have to ask the second question, not just the first. You have to know what you've built well enough to recognize when someone is trying to reach for it in the dark. The land in Queen Creek is still mine. The rental property still carries. My estate documents are now clean and explicit in ways they weren't before. None of that happened by accident. It happened because 3 people, my daughter, my son, and a woman I'd never met who answered a call on a Sunday, chose honesty over convenience. Chose to act even when acting was hard. I built my business the same way. Showed up. Did what I said I would do. Treated people like they deserve to be treated. It's not complicated. But it requires something from you every single day. And in the end, the things you build that way, the reputation, the family, the life, those are the things that hold. Some debts get paid in exactly the currency they were borrowed in.